Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Wirework Goddess Macrame ring. And this is what mine looks like. So you get this really nice effect of your zigzagging wire in between the beads here on the front. And then you have your macrame all the way around your ring with your wire. And then it looks like this on. It's really nice and comfortable to wear as well. So this is basically the wire version of a ring that I previously done with cord. It's the exact same technique, it's just working with wire instead. Then obviously we finish it off in a bit of a different way as well. So if you want to learn how to make this ring, then keep watching. So these are the things that we're going to need. Now first of all, here I have my wire. This is a regular round copper coated wire. I'm going to be using this 0.6mm throughout the whole piece. And then as for the beads that we'll need, in this case I'm just using some blue coated hematite, but they're 3mm rounds. You can obviously use whatever beads that you want to, and also to match with the wire that you're using. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So we'll then need some lengths of wire. The first ones here are going to be the holding wires. These are about 40 centimeters long. Now that's longer than we need because it is just a ring that we're making, but I'd rather have too much so there's enough to work with as well. And then we'll also need another 2 lengths of the same wire, and these are going to be the working wires, and these are about 50 centimeters each. Again, we're not going to necessarily use it all, but I'd rather have too much so we have enough to work with and we're not going to run out. So then what I've done is I've taken all my lengths of wire here and I'm working on a macrame board, and this is just a mini one because it's just a ring that we're making. And then I've attached them all onto it and I just put them all in the same slot. And what I've made sure is the 2 shorter ones that are going to be holding wires are coming down, all the way down to the bottom here, where I've also attached them into the bottom slot. And then I have the 2 working lengths, so the longer ones in the same slot as well, just that's fine. And then we're going to use these to start making some square knots, and I just have one coming out to each side. So this is the setup, and then we're now going to start making the square knots. So what I'm then going to do is take my working lengths of wire here, and like I said, start making our square knots. Now making macrame with wire, it's the exact same techniques as when you're using cord. The only difference is the wire reacts a little bit differently, so we just have to bear that in mind. But then what I'm going to do is take my left one over the holding wires there, then I'm going to take the right one over that and underneath everything in the middle. Make sure you go underneath both holding wires and then bring it up through the loop here. So it's just a regular square knot, and then I'm going to tighten this up to where I want it to start. Now I've also made sure to leave a bit of a tail both on the holding wires on this side, but also on the working wires, because we need to make more square knots in the other direction once we've done the center part here. So just start out with this, and then I'm going to take the right wire over the middle and then the left one underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop like that. And then I'm going to gently tighten this up below what we just did and tighten it nicely like that. And this is then the second half of the square knot, so we now have one full one. So what I want to do is make 3 of these square knots right underneath each other, and then that's the time where we then want to start adding in the beads. So I've now made my 3 square knots here, and then what I'm going to do now is add on the beads. So we have the 2 lengths of our holding wire. What I'm going to do is take my beads and add on 4 beads to each one of them, just like that. And then I'm going to push them all the way up. Now what you will find is they'll kind of sit off from each other, and that's also what we want them to do. Just push them kind of up as far as they'll go, and then one will be closer and they'll be kind of sitting off from each other like this. So we have the beads ready. Now what we need to do is just get the wires here ready as well. So first of all, I'm just going to take my left one and bring that underneath the 2 holding wires in the middle. And this is just getting the wires into position. Bring it all the way to the other side and pull it out there. And then I'm going to take the one from the right side, bring it underneath the 2 holding wires, and just bring that out to the other side. I find doing this just makes the whole thing sit a bit better, and then become more transitioning into this next piece where we're going to start wrapping these wires around the beads. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with my left one here. Doesn't really matter which one you start with, but then that's coming out towards the left side. What I want to do is bring this across the top, the front of it, and I want to bring it above the first bead on the left side, but then I want to come across to the other side below the bead on the right side there. So it's just crossing from the left to the right, capturing the first bead on that right side. So going in between the first and the second one there. And then I want to come back underneath the two holding wires. And then we just need to make sure, as we move this around, we bring the whole wire through. I want to just make sure that the wire kind of sits where I want it to. So you can kind of put your finger on it and then pull it all the way around. It's going to come around the back, making sure it stays in between those two beads there, all the way out to the other side. So back to the side where it was coming from originally, so the left here. And then just make sure everything sits the way you want it to sit as you go, as you're doing these wraps here. Because once we've done them, we can't really go back and adjust them anymore. But then on this side, you want to make sure that the wire is coming out and sits below the first one on that left side and above the second one, so in between them. Then I'm going to come around the side again, make sure the wire goes in between those two beads, and then what we're doing is kind of wrapping across at an angle, so it comes gently downwards, again towards the right side, around the side of that, and now this is coming below the second bead on the right side. And then again bring it underneath the two holding wires, and then all the way back to the original side, which is the left one in this case. And then on that side again, we move down one bead, so this is the second bead, we're coming below them, between the second and the third one. And again, like I said, as you go, make sure to check everything is sitting right, the wires are wrapping around nicely. I'm going to come around the top again, across at an angle, just like this. So every time we wrap, we move down one bead on each side there. Bring it back underneath and bring it out to the original side, making sure to just capture the beads properly, like that. And again, then on this left side, come below the next bead, and then in between that and the next one. So in this case, that's the third and the fourth, which is then the last one. Come across the top again, the front of it, and in this case on the right side, that's the last bead we're then coming underneath. And then I just want to make sure to come back to the original side again, so do the one final wrap here and bring it all the way over, and then make sure this is coming out below the last bead on the left side as well. So this is the first wire that we wrapped around. Now we need to do basically the same thing with this other one, but it's just going in the opposite direction. So I'm going to go back to that, and then what I'm going to do is have this come out below the first bead on the right side, because we want to now wrap it so we get this kind of zigzag effect with the wire. Then bring it across the front, where we're then going below the first one on the right and then also below the first one on the left. So we're coming down at an angle in the opposite direction than we were before. Bring it around, back underneath. Make sure you kind of don't catch the other wire that we were using. All the way out to the other side, making sure to place the wire exactly where we want it to sit. So again, tighten it and position it as you go, because we can't really go back and do it later, because then it will be in place the way it is. Just like that. Back around, we're moving down one bead on the right here, back over the top, again coming down at an angle, moving down one bead on the left as well, coming back underneath the two holding wires, and bringing it all the way around underneath, below the next bead, across the front. And I just like to kind of hold on with my fingers here as I go, because the beads obviously are still loose on the holding wires because they're open on the bottom here. But that's what we're then going to fix next time after we're done with these wraps. Go around again underneath until we then reach the bottom of this, just making sure that it sits right. So this then wraps in between the third and the fourth bead on each of the sides. So now you can see you get this really nice zigzag effect with the wires in between the beads crossing over from one side to the other. So now what we need to do, that we have both wires down here and then naturally coming out to the right side, so we have one on each side, which is what we want. So to capture this in place so the beads won't move and this whole thing is going to become nice and secure, we then need to make some square knots on the other side of the beads as well. So all I'm going to do with that is the same as before. I'm just going to start with the same side, bring that over, then take the other one over that, underneath everything in the middle and back through the loop. And then tighten this gently. And then what I like to do as I tighten this, because the first one is always the most fiddly, because like I said the wires and the beads are loose, just double check everything is sitting right. I like to then put my finger on the very last wrap and the last beads there to try and hold the wire in place while I'm then tightening. Just so nothing moves too much out of place. So there we go. And then we need to make the other half of the same square knot. And then tighten that as well. And then, this is then the beginning of the square knots on the other side, and this is now nice and securely captured in place. So what I want to do here is also do 3 square knots just like I did on the other side. So now what I then want to do, when I have my 3 knots on each side here, I actually want to get rid of one of my holding wires. So what I'm going to do is just do one side at a time, do the same thing on both sides, separate them out here, just release them, and then I'm just going to get a pair of flush cutters and then cut off one of them right below the very last knot. It's just so it's easier to then also finish off by only having one holding wire rather than having to deal with more. Then I'm just going to put my holding wire back in, and then I want to just make one more square knot here just to kind of get over that point where I cut off the wire. And like I said, obviously you want to do the exact same thing on the other side as well. Then once you've done that, we can then fully take it off the board, because then we need to start kind of putting the whole ring together to become one full ring that we can wear. So now that I'm done at this place where I have my center section with the beads, and I've also gotten rid of one of my holding wires on each side here, then we need to start shaping this into the ring. So this is where I get my ring mandrel out. You can use whatever you have that's going to fit the size and shape that you need, and then you obviously want to choose what size you want it to be. I'm then going to grab hold of it and then fold it around to start getting the shape in place. So here we go, and you can see we have the 2 holding wires coming out towards the other side, and then I want to cross these over the middle also. So just cross them so they line next to each other. Now it doesn't have to be perfect yet because we can still adjust this. And then what we need to do is start making some more square knots, but we need to incorporate the other wire into it. So that's why I'm crossing them over like this. And like I said, don't worry too much about the size just yet. Just more important to get these captured so it becomes more secure. Then we can always readjust the size. So what I'm going to do is start with one side at a time, and then I want to make some more square knots but around both of these 2 holding wires. And what you just want to make sure to do is you start with the right one. So what you can tell that by looking and your last knot, the place where you kind of have a loop going around over the top is the side you need to start with. So where your wire is kind of coming out below that little loop, that's the one you need to start with. So bring that over, and this part can be a little bit fiddly because obviously it's kind of loose and we're just holding it here, but just do the best you can. Bring the left one over, the right one goes over that, and it goes over both of the 2 holding wires. And then we need to come basically through the ring band to come underneath the 2 holding wires and up through the loop on the other side. And bring this through, and then gradually and gently pull this tighter to make sure we don't bend the wire out of place. And then I want to pull this tight just like this, and this is going to be the first half of the next square knot. and we've then captured this in place as well. So just pull it nice and tight. So that's the first half. I want to then make the full square knot as well by starting from the other side to complete it, and then again going underneath the two holding wires is basically just going through the ring band itself, just like this. And then again, once you're there and you feel you're in the right place, pull it nice and tight, just like that. Now I'm just going to do the one for now, and then you want to go and do the same thing on the other side. And then once you've done that, so you have both of these two holding wires captured in place, it does become much easier because they're not so loose. And then also that's where they need to start thinking about the size of the ring. Now that you've then done both sides here, so we have the one square knot after connecting the two holding wires, then what I want to do is bring my ring mandrel back, because now we want to size this to continue making square knots, but making sure we get it in the right size, obviously. So bring it to the size that you want it to be, and then the two holding wires are coming through here out to the side of it. We want to pull on these so you can kind of push the square knots as well. So push everything else so it's going to sit nicely and be the size that you want it to be. And you can take it back off, and then basically all you want to do is then continue making square knots. So again, start with one side, and you can also maybe kind of gauge how many knots you'll need to make. So if you look on the ones you've already done, how much space do they take up, and then maybe see. In this case, I'm going to probably need to make either 2 or 3 on each side, because I don't want to just do one side and work my way all the way across. I want to do halfway from one side, then go to the other side and do halfway, so they basically meet in the middle. So I'm just going to keep doing some square knots here, like I said, about 2 or 3. Again, it all depends on what size you want yours to be as well. So just do square knots from each side until they meet in the middle. So now I'm making square knots here on each side, so they come from where the holding wire is coming out and then meet up in the middle. And you can see, you want it to meet right in the middle across from the beads. So all that's left to do now is get rid of the excess wire, because otherwise it's done. Obviously just make sure and double check it is the right size, because you still have the opportunity to just, if you need it to be a bit bigger, just open it up a bit, and otherwise pull it tight, just like that. So what we're going to do is, I want to get rid of all the wires, but still try and make it as seamless as possible. So I'm going to start with the holding wire here. Now as you can see, this is coming out on the outside here, in between some square knots. So what I want to do is want to make sure that I kind of make a stopper, so when we cut it down, we won't be able to just open this and pull it out, because otherwise that's always going to ruin the ring. So where we're at, want to have a look, and what you'll find when you're looking in your square knots, you have little wells in each of them. That's what we're going to take advantage of. So I'm going to bring this across, straight across to the other side of where it's coming out from, and basically fill in the little well with this wire. Then I'm going to take some flush cutters. I'm going to cut off the excess, but I want to just leave enough here so it's not sticking straight up, so you can pull it through, but it's coming up, and then where it's coming out, it has that bend in it, which is then the stopper, so we're not able to pull it through. So I want to cut off the excess, roughly to where it meets the side of the ring, and then I want to just take my chain nose, I'm just going to open it up a bit here, and then right at the very tip of the end, I want to just grab that and then just make a tiny little bend inwards in towards the ring band, because then what I'm going to do is I have that little bend, and I'm then going to squeeze it down so it lands and falls in that gap in the little well in the square knot. And by just tucking the end of it inwards, that is going to get hidden and get nestled in between the square knots there, because we don't want the end of the wire to be sticking out and be able to catch or scratch on the skin. So you want to do that, and you want to do the same with the other side. And then these ones, we basically want to do the same thing with the working wires, but you can see here we now have one coming from each side of each square knot at the end. So what I'm just going to do, we have them kind of coming on the outside, one of them naturally, and then one towards the inside naturally. So I'm just going to take one at a time. Again, going to do the same on both sides. And then I want to bring, this one is coming out more naturally towards the outside. So I want to bring this across the top, again into that well of the square knot. So over to the opposite side, get my flush cutters, same principle, cut it down so we have just a bit left after the bend. That's going to then be the stopper. And then again, same principle as well. With this, grab the very end of it and then bend it inwards. So that when we squeeze it down like that, it's going to properly nestle into that square knot without being able to catch on anything. And the same with the other one from the same square knot there. This one is more naturally on the inside, so all I'm going to do is the same thing but push it through the ring band to get it over to the opposite side of that square knot. Make sure it falls in that well. And then cut off the excess. And then just take your chain nose again and bend the very end of the wire inwards towards the ring band. And then we want to just squeeze it down. So there we go, and that's how to finish it off. So pretty nice and simple, but it's also secure enough. But if you can really get the ends nestled into the square knots, you won't be able to catch or scratch on it either, so it's not going to annoy you to wear it. So do the same with the rest of them here, and then once you've done that, you'll have your finished ring. So then when you've gotten rid of all the excess wire there, it blends in, as you can see, really nice and seamlessly, but still it's also nice and secure. So this is what the ring can look like, just with the materials that I've used, obviously. So it's also nice and comfortable to wear because you have the macrame all the way around, except for just the beads at the top there. So a nice decorative, simple look. So also quite a nice and simple technique. This is just similar to what I've done with cord. This is just with wire work instead. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this multi-knot double row wire work macrame bracelet. And this is what it looks like. So this is what mine looks like with the materials that I've used. So you have 2 rows here going down with beads and then multiple knots in between to give quite a nice separated effect there. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to be using. Now first off here, the wire that I've got is a